Hi, everyone. I'm Omar Villafranca. Thanks for joining us. The partial government shutdown is stretching into its fourth week. It's the longest shutdown in U.S. history. Americans are starting to feel the impact, especially at airports where TSA screeners have been calling out of work. The president ruled out one possible way to end it. Here's CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett.
Before leaving for New Orleans, President Trump told reporters he has, for the time being, shelved the threat of declaring a national emergency on the border.
Now, I have the absolute legal right to call it, but I'm not looking to do that because this is too simple.
The declaration could allow the White House to use Pentagon funds to accelerate construction of barriers on the southern border.
We're going to have a wall. We're going to have a barrier. We're going to have something that's going to be very strong.
Addressing the Farm Bureau Federation, the president said the partial government shutdown will continue until Democrats cave.
I will never, ever back down. I didn't need this fight. This is a rough fight.
The fight has led to gridlock at some airports around the country as tens of thousands of TSA personnel have been working without pay since the shutdown began.
I've got 2 kids in college, so that has an impact.
Atlanta, the busiest airport in the world, saw longer security lines as TSA workers called in sick in higher than normal numbers. Houston's Bush Intercontinental was forced to close a checkpoint. TSA officials fear they've reached a tipping point and expect the number of sick calls to increase in the coming days, impacting major airports nationwide. On the Senate floor, the stalemate dragged on.
Walls and fences still work.
Everyone knows it's a waste of taxpayer money.
Democrats refused to come to the negotiating table with a legitimate offer.
Major Garrett joins us now. Major, Senator Lindsey Graham proposed to reopen the government to give both parties time to renegotiate the wall and the funding. But what does the president's rejection of that proposal tell you?
That we're exactly where we have been, that the president believes, and he said this publicly, and in this case, the country should take the president's words seriously. If I reopen the government, I will lose my leverage. The political leverage of the shutdown, which this White House, and we've reported this consistently, believes will over time force Democrats to cave before Republicans. The president again said today Republican unity is very strong. He expects Republicans to hold firm, and he expects Democrats over time to feel the pressure of the partial government shutdown and come to him with what he will consider a negotiating bid. It's interesting and worth noting that in the talking points this weekend from the White House and from its strongest and most vocal allies on Capitol Hill, Republicans keep saying the same thing. Democrats refuse to negotiate, which that signals the White House is prepared to negotiate. But until there is that willingness to negotiate, to put something on the table, the shutdown will continue.
Major, is there any indication of what the president's next move is? Do we know what possible song the Democrats have to play to get the president to dance?
Well, this continues the conversation we just had. So, members of our audience might reasonably ask themselves, well, why won't the Democrats then negotiate? Because from their point of view, 2 things are important. 1, the midterm elections. The 3 weeks preceding that, a national conversation about immigration, which Democrats believe they won because they gained 40 seats in the House and kept Republican gains in the Senate to a bare minimum. 2, they believe if they come to the president and say, all right, we're willing to negotiate with you about the amounts and where those amounts would go to live up to this border security emphasis you have, Mr. President, and will do so without reopening the government, Democrats believe they will have completely given in to what they consider an illegitimate approach. That is to say, using the leverage, the president's own word, of a partial government shutdown to extract political concessions from an opposition party. Democrats don't want to send that signal, don't want to make that offer, and therefore both sides are rigidly locked in, and that's where we are.
And you mentioned the struggles that the TSA is facing in this historically long shutdown. Do we have a sense of how not only the TSA workers, but other government workers affected by this, how they're coping?
Well, some are going to food distribution centers, some are having garage sales, some are not showing up to work. And one White House economic advisor, someone I know very well, Kevin Hassett, gave an interview to PBS last week, and it's getting a lot of attention. And he said something that's true. During the holiday period, many federal workers were taking vacation. Therefore, they weren't going to be at work anyway. His point is, well, they're going to get back pay eventually, and they won't be charged for their holiday time off because it was a partial government shutdown. So they're actually in a better place. Well, that only assumes that this shutdown, A, will end soon, and there'll be a rapid reimbursement of wages that are currently missing. Well, as anyone knows who lives paycheck to paycheck, when the paycheck's not there, you can't live off of the promise of future income. What TSA employees or other federal government workers and contractors affected by the partial government shutdown have to deal with now is the reality is the monthly or weekly paychecks they had come to expect aren't there, aren't coming anytime soon, and have to plan accordingly.
Major Garrett in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Major.
You got it.